fucking thing sucks. We'll do it live.
Thank you for that. We're back. So
Okay, hello,
we are back.
We discussed in the off-air time, that to prevent the show from going to absolute shit, we were going to represent to you 5 points of interest.
And not just do this thing completely off the cuff.
Yeah.
We're going to have some sort of organization.
Yeah.
Shock.
Why don't you discuss number 1? Because I think you really have the most knowledge about it.
Number 1 is something which I had just learned about today, and something that's really been going on since the 60s. I'm talking, of course, well, not of course, it's not even obvious. I haven't even alluded to it yet. I'm talking about... Shut up, Ryan. I'm talking...
Are you talking about the conspiracy of who killed JFK?
No. I'm talking about the conspiracy to keep Grand Funk Railroad out of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Of course, it was so obvious.
I know, right? Grand Funk Railroad belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it just fucking blows my mind that they're not. Okay? I'm actually going to follow through on this and put a link in the crotch bar to the petition which you can sign to get Mark, Don, and Mel into the Hall of Fame. And let me take a drink of water.
Now, do you think Grand Funk has outstayed their welcome now that Mark Farner's left?
I've heard a lot of purists that say since Farner wrote about 96% of everything that Grand Funk wrote and didn't cover. A lot of their best shit is covers.
It's true that the critics hated them?
I think so. Like, really widely panned. I think they still are.
Get terrible reviews.
Especially
except Roger Griscow, but who follows fucking Robert Griscow anyway?
Or Rolling Stone magazine.
Rolling Stone magazine has no goddamn integrity. There were two nails in this fucking coffin. The first nail was when I realized they don't actually know the musicians they review, or at least they don't actually give the effort to. At least they don't give the effort to learn about the musicians they review. The first instance of this I ever noticed was on the review of Brian May's first album. Brian May was a guitarist from Queen. Who I was a big fan of Queen back in the day. By the day,
back when?
Like 3 years ago.
Which was
Not
actually
so much anymore.
Which was actually a Wednesday. Yeah.
Don't quote Dane Cook, you fucking. So. So, they're reviewing Brian May's album. They gave it a decent review, which is good. But they said something that made me realize they don't actually know anything about the musicians they ever review. So they say it's a surprise how well Brian May can sing. Now, this isn't a surprise to anyone who's listened to any of their albums, considering he sings about a third of all the songs they've ever made. Maybe not
Freddie Mercury does it all. I'm not sure what in the hell you're talking about.
30%, 40% of all the songs, 30% of all the songs they've ever made.
Kind of like, Pete Townsend.
They said the same thing about Pete Townsend. When, if you've listened to any of the Who's albums, it's pretty obvious when Pete Townsend is singing, and everyone knows he has a decent voice. Well, everyone who knows anything about the Who knows he has a decent voice.
Yeah.
These are two fucking huge bands in the last few decades.
Which today are surprisingly forgotten.
I wouldn't agree with that.
I mean, they're not forgotten by the people who, dig rock and roll, but,
Who cares about the people who don't?
Even the people who don't dig rock and roll, even they know about Zeppelin and the Beatles.
Well, the Beatles are still extremely pervasive in our in our society. I mean, you can go to. I went to a Borders like 2 months ago, and there was Beatles memorabilia everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but there were Beatles memorabilia that wasn't in the music section. It was, artwork and stuff like that. The Beatles are so pervasive in society still, and Led Zeppelin is
40
really
years
become an
later.
icon, sort of.
Yeah, everybody says that Zeppelin was the earliest metal band, which I completely disagree with. But
Well, I disagree that Zeppelin was metal at all. Really, I mean they had heavier tone, but they were a blues band, and they with a lot of folk songs.
pretty much the
I enjoy the
entirety of
folksy
Zeppelin
Zeppelin the
3.
most. I'm not a big fan of the bluesy Zeppelin, honestly.
I love the earliest albums, like Zeppelin 1 and 2.
I'm not a big fan, and I say I'm not a big fan of the bluesy Zeppelin, but my two favorite songs by them are "When the Levee Breaks" and "In My Time of Dying," which are arguably two of their bluesiest songs.
Which are actually direct blues
Covers
rip-offs.
by good old what's his face, Jordan. What's his name?
There was Blind Willie Johnson and some other dude, or I think it might have been a chick who sang "When the Levee Breaks."
Hold on, let's Wikipedia this shit.
And I love how we just went off about Grand Funk Railroad. Now we're talking about Zeppelin. But
well, no,
let's get back to Grand Funk.
Let's continue on this topic because
okay.
I think it's important. I think it's important
to understand the entire scope of things.
Yeah, so Beatles and Zeppelin are very pervasive.
Big din.
Yeah, culture today. I think the bands like the Who, and actually, Pink Floyd's pretty around still.
But mostly in the cultures of people who use mind-altering drugs.
You never hear of people who are like, "Oh, I don't like Pink Floyd."
Yeah,
Pink Floyd is
everybody likes
generally stayed in public favor all these years. I say all these years. They released their last album less than 2 decades ago, so
yeah.
Shitty as it was.
I didn't even listen to it.
The problem was that sticking with I have a theory that the only good Pink Floyd was a Pink Floyd led by Roger Waters.
Yeah, because Syd Barrett was like way too fucking out there.
I appreciate that Syd Barrett started Pink Floyd and was the driving force that got Pink Floyd into the spotlight, but they couldn't have continued with Syd Barrett in the way that they did. And I think that by the time Roger Waters left, I think David Gilmour just didn't have the charisma to lead a band in the way that Roger Waters did.
And also, he wasn't as much of an asshole.
Yeah. And he wasn't as good a songwriter. And the problem I mainly have with Momentary Lapse of Reason and The Division Bell, the last two albums, which were both recorded without Roger. Both recorded without Waters. Is that they have a very 80s feel to them, which is, of course, going to happen. They were recorded, I think, 80-something, 86 and 91. Hold on.
Yeah. Although that being said, I do like, at least one or two songs off of The Division Bell. I mean,
yeah,
Marooned
I do too. I like A Great Day for Freedom.
Marooned is a fucking epic piece of guitar work. Well,
everything, any guitar work that David Gilmour did was pretty much guaranteed. A Momentary Lapse of Reason. Yeah, I didn't get that a moment ago. It was released in 86, and then The Division Bell was released in 94.
This is probably rather disgusting to watch me drink water.
It's probably rather boring to listen to us discuss music that hasn't been in the public eye for a while.
20, 30 years.
Fuck you. If you don't enjoy the music we listen to, fuck off.
Fuck you, we don't even want you here.
Stop liking the stuff we don't like.
You have to be just like us.
Okay, why don't we bring this train back onto Grand Funk Railroad and then
what you did there, I saw it.
And then we'll redirect it to our next topic.
Okay. Grand Funk Railroad is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm not sure why, but it's a fucking affront to rock music. Like I said to my mate Ryan earlier,
That's
and
me.
yes, and also what I wrote on the petition that I signed, Grand Funk Railroad sold out Shea Stadium in 2 days. 2 days. It took the Beatles 2 weeks to do that. Grand Funk Railroad opened for Led Zeppelin in Detroit, Michigan, sometime probably in the late 60s, early 70s, whatever. Peter Grant was so jealous that they were bigger than Zeppelin in Detroit, he cut the show in the middle of the set, and a riot ensued. Grand Funk
No.
Railroad... pardon?
Now, well, I do have to agree that Grand Funk is better than Zeppelin. I do take an affront the fact that you're basically comparing them and showing that they're better than the Beatles.
Oh, because the Beatles are fucking Mount Olympus. Can't touch them, can we?
No, you can't. They're the one band in music I disagree with anyone being able to touch.
Grand Funk Railroad, the Cream, and Jimi Hendrix Experience should be the examples by which power trios are measured. Grand Funk
What about
was...
the Jonas Brothers?
Fuck you.
Actually, they're not a power trio. None of them were famous before.
Uh,
yeah, none of the Grand Funk people were famous before Grand Funk, so fuck you.
They were a hard rock, like rock and roll party band, as well as very politically aware in their protest songs, like I'm Your Captain, Closer to Home. What was another one? People Let's Stop the War, etc. The spirit of the late 60s and much of the 70s.
They also covered a Traffic song. That's interesting.
Thank you. The spirit of the late 60s and much of the 70s
right, by the way.
is Grand Funk Railroad. To not have them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is, quite frankly, sick and robbing GFR of the glory and fame they so rightly deserve. Mark Farner, Mel Shacker, and Don Brewer are the American band. Thank you.
All right, thanks, JFK. So let's
on behalf of the Supreme Court, the Attorney General, Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the rest of my family.
So let's move on to some kind of cosmological thing Brian came up with when he was high.
Let's not right now.
Oh, okay. So issue number 3 is.
You only got about 2 minutes.
All right, let's discuss it. Actually, no, I can pull it off in 2 minutes. A new phrase I think we need to coin for when a politician fucks up. Now, we have. I think he's not a senator. Hold on.
He's a Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Yeah, he's a Speaker of the House of Representatives. Mr. Republican over there, John Boehner. Now, John Boehner has German ancestry, or at least I assume it's German, and his name is spelled Boehner, much like boner without the H.
Boner.
So I think we need to call it whenever a politician screws up, pulling a Boehner. You see.
But you spell it.
Yeah, but you spell it like Boehner spells his name, so it looks like they're pulling a boner. That's just something I was thinking of.
Sexual innuendo, which like really pisses off the Republicans.
The right.
Yeah.
And the slightly less right, which we call the left in our country.
The slightly less right.
But I don't mean that as in they're wrong. I mean that as in there's no left in this country. So why don't you kill it and we'll stop part 3.
What do you mean there is no left? There are fucking communists everywhere.
All right, McCarthy, why don't you
I am not a McCarthyist. I just like my freedom.
Movinator. All right. How long has the recording been stopped?
4, 3, 2,
Oh, all right,
1.
good. It has a bye.